Vanessa woke from another nightmare with her lungs tight and her palms damp, as if she had been running through smoke. The dream always pulled her back to Freddy's pizzeria and to a child who never escaped. Mike called at dawn, checking whether she was still trapped in the same scenes. Vanessa admitted she was and insisted she was trying to push through them. Abby wandered in, caught enough to understand, and teased Mike about whether he had kissed Vanessa yet. Mike dismissed it and insisted they were only friends, even if their planned dinner sounded like a date. The nightmare's core was a night in Ichenjobite Badisharar. Freddy's was packed with kids, pizza, and arcade noise. Charlotte, a quiet girl who kept to herself, sat near the stage and watched the trapdoor. Eager to be first when the animatronics appeared. A blonde girl invited her to join a table, and Charlotte reluctantly agreed, convinced the other girls did not want her. Moments later, Charlotte saw a mascot guide a boy away from the crowd, with an urgency that felt wrong. She ran to alert adults, but nobody believed her, and the room's cheer drowned her fear. With no help coming, Charlotte slipped toward the restricted corridor on her own. In the dim back area, she discovered the truth. The animatronic was William, wearing a suit and moving with intent. Several boys lay unconscious. Charlotte ducked behind a counter, then crawled out and tried to carry one boy to safety. William spotted her, pulled a knife, and followed as she struggled forward with shaking arms. She reached the stage, tried to force the room to notice, and collapsed under the bright lights. Stab wounds lined her back, and she died on the stage. The trapdoor opened and swallowed her body. Moments later, it rose again, the marionette lifting her like a grotesque prize. Elise called it an accident caused by trespassing, closed the case quickly, and buried it. Freddy's kept operating long enough for rumors to spread and harden, until the building became a scar that nobody wanted to claim. In the present, Mike tried to rebuild a routine for Abby and himself. Jeremiah arrived one morning to help paint the house, and mentioned that Mike's aunt had ended up in an asylum after witnessing the fallout of Freddy's. Mike insisted he wanted a fresh start, even if he still kept one eye on the past. Abby did not want distance from the legend. At school, she retold the story for attention, repeating gossip about William later dying inside a suit when hidden contraptions crushed him. She also admitted she wanted to return someday, even though Mike would not allow it. Mr. Erd, her teacher, tried to stomp down the myths. He called animatronic hauntings a farce and announced a science fair scheduled for the weekend. Every student had to participate or fail the exam. Abby attempted a project and failed repeatedly. Mr. Bird suggested she opt out because she had no skill. Her classmates mocked her and told her she should stop boasting about broken friends if she could not fix anything. Wei Kang. That evening, Mike got ready to meet Vanessa for dinner and asked Abby to help with his tie. Abby asked to visit the old cafeteria and see her animatronic friends. Mike refused, repeating his rule that she must never set foot in that place. He claimed the robots were broken now and promised that one day he would fix them, even though he could not say how or when. After he left, Abby turned on the television and watched a horror podcast hosted by Lisa, who treated Freddy's like content. At dinner, Vanessa tried to sound steady. She described coping by throwing herself into new activities and meeting new people, but the nightmares still returned. Mike admitted Abby was still obsessed with the pizzeria. Vanessa warned him that lying about fixing the robots would only hurt Abby more later. Mike urged Vanessa to fight the demons in her sleep the way he had forced himself to fight his own. When Mike returned home, the silence felt wrong. Abby was missing. He found a note saying she had gone back to the pizzeria. Mike rushed there and found her sitting inside, staring at the stage. Abby asked where her friends were. Mike finally confessed that after the explosion, there had been nothing left to recover. He had avoided telling her because he did not want to break her heart. He suggested finding a small item so she could keep a memory. Abby chose a past talker, a toy-like device that once carried voices between children and their metal friends. On the way out, Mike spotted a faded Freddy's flyer pinned to a rotten board, advertising a place that should have been dead. He tore it down and pocketed it like evidence, unable to explain the impulse. The paper felt connected to Abby's fixation and to the secrets the building kept. He could not name it. Back at home, Abby carried the past talker like treasure. She placed it beside her half-finished science project and treated it as both tool and memorial. She pressed buttons, listened for static, and imagined familiar voices hiding in the noise. The obsession worried Mike, but he also feared that taking it away would leave her with nothing. He started watching her more closely, tracking the way she stared at doorways and the way her drawings began began to include puppet limbs and smiling masks. Vanessa noticed the change when she visited and urged Mike to be honest, even if honesty hurt more than silence. Meanwhile, Lisa led her crew toward the original pizzeria to film an episode. Alex worried about access, but Lisa had arranged help from a security guard named Michael. Michael appeared suddenly, unnerving them with his blank stare and eerie calm, yet he let them inside. They recorded ruined hallways and the empty stage. Lisa lingered on a marionette photo, and Michael explained it had once used wireless signals to control the other animatronics. She found 3 mascots standing motionless, while Foxy was missing, rumored to be part of an experiment they could never repair. As the team split up, Lisa began hearing faint music that no one else noticed. Michael warned that the building could play tricks on the mind and urged her to ignore it. Lisa stayed behind anyway, following the sound. In the basement, Rob checked a motion alert, slipped, and fell into a water pit. Bruised and panicked, he struggled to stand while water closed around his legs. Alex stayed near Michael and talked about the episode going viral, blind to the way the building seemed to listen. Lisa followed the melody into a room with a giant gift box and an old music box. She shut the music box, but the gift box trembled and opened. The marionette burst out and attacked her. Her scream echoed through the building. Alex ran toward it, and Michael began to laugh. An animatronic grabbed Alex by the neck and killed him. Below, Rob noticed a marionette drop into the sewer water, then many more surrounded him. They moved in a coordinated swarm, pulling him under until he stopped moving. Michael reached the room where Lisa fought, but she was already overwhelmed. The animatronics forced her down, and the marionette's presence seemed to hollow her out from the inside. Possessed, Lisa turned and chased Michael through the corridors. He escaped and disappeared, leaving the pizzeria to swallow the evidence again. The next morning, Abby tried once more to work on her science project, and failed. She sat with the past talker and spoke into it, hoping for some response from friends who were no longer there. Mike watched quietly and said nothing, trapped between guilt and protection. Vanessa, meanwhile, spiraled in waking life. At the gym, she hallucinated her father and fled. In a changing room, she nearly drew her gun on a friend, because her mind insisted someone was behind her. At home, she gathered old toys, followed Mike's advice, and forced herself to sleep with the toys arranged like a shield. In her dream, she confronted her father, ran from him through shifting rooms, and hid in a closet where another animatronic waited, like a warning. She turned at last, raised her gun, and shot him, breaking his hold long enough to wake. That night, Abby slept beside the past talker. The device crackled on its own, carrying what sounded like Chica's voice and a plea for help. Abby rose, convinced her friends still needed rescuing, and slipped out of the house toward Freddy's once more. Abby obeyed the voice that crackled through the past talker and slipped out into the night. Guided by Chica's faint instructions, she returned to the original Freddy's pizzeria and pushed her way inside. The building felt hollow and long abandoned, stripped of any warmth. Abby called for her friends and listened for any familiar whir, but only her own footsteps answered. Then Chica stepped out of the shadows, and Abby ran forward to hug her without hesitation. Chica looked changed, with fresh seams along her suit and a stiffness in her movements that did not match Abby's memories. Her posture and timing felt wrong, but Abby did not question it. Chica conveyed that she needed Abby's help to escape this place, and Abby promised she would do it, trusting the bond she believed still existed. Morning arrived with brittle calm. Vanessa went to Mike's house and found it unusually quiet. She searched the rooms, noticed Abby's past talker on the bed, and then Abby startled her from behind. Abby claimed Mike had gone out for breakfast and eagerly showed Vanessa a science fair project, a small robot display she credited to Freddy and Chica. Vanessa tried to hide her alarm, while Abby described returning to the old pizzeria and working with her friends there. Mike returned soon after, and Abby proudly added a drawing she had made of a river ride, bright and playful against the grimness that followed the family everywhere. Vanessa pulled Mike aside and forced him to stop minimizing what was happening. Mike revealed the flyer he had taken from Freddy's and admitted he had called the number printed on it. The call reached Henry, Charlotte's father, who had been hunting for answers since Ichen Jubite Batsharar. Mike learned that Vanessa had once been Charlotte's best friend and had kept that history hidden. The revelation sparked a bitter argument that ended with Vanessa walking out, leaving Mike angry and Abby unaware of the danger gathering around her. Science fair day began with forced smiles. Mike dropped Abby at school, promised to return after work, and left with unease tightening his chest. Vanessa went to the old pizzeria alone, determined to investigate without anyone stopping her. Inside, she found the music box shattered, its pieces scattered like bones, and the air felt charged with something newly unbound. She sensed Charlotte's presence moving beyond the control room that once held ... her and tried to confront it before anyone else was harmed. Vanessa reminded Charlotte that a perimeter lock had been created so no animatronic could leave, and not even Vanessa herself herself, could walk away from the trap she built. Charlotte promised she already had another helper, and the possessed Lisa lunged from behind, slamming Vanessa down and dragging her into helpless captivity. At school, Abby arrived excited, ready to present what she believed was a real achievement. Mr. Bird appeared and humiliated her, calling her an embarrassment who should have stayed home. Abby tried to explain she had made a mini robot, but Bird snatched it and broke it while pretending it was an accident. Abby's hope shattered with it. She fled the fair, heartbroken and furious, and returned to the pizzeria where Chica waited like comfort, wearing a friendly face. Abby poured out what happened, and Chica offered herself as Abby's science project, but insisted that Abby first help her escape the diner's invisible boundary by entering a secret code. Vanessa, now held hostage by Charlotte's influence, was forced into a terrible choice. Charlotte demanded the access code that disabled the perimeter lock. Vanessa refused until Charlotte threatened Abby's life, turning the choice into an impossible trap. With no safe option left, Vanessa surrendered the code. Abby entered it, and the lock failed. First with TC5, Staper, Conspace, the prototype stirred, and the remaining animatronics became free to move beyond Freddy's walls. Chica took Abby out of the building, secured a cab, and rushed back toward the fair, presenting the escape as a victory Abby had earned. Cal Mike went to see Henry, hoping the past would explain the present. Henry described years spent trying to prove his daughter's death was murder, not an accident caused by wandering into a restricted area. He believed the same killer took other children afterward, and that official silence protected the truth. Mike noticed Abby's river ride drawing among Henry's things and asked about it. Henry confirmed the original pizzeria once had a river ride, and that it had been Charlotte's favorite attraction. Mike called Abby's school and learned she had already left the premises, and Henry handed him Charlotte's old music box, hoping its melody could still reach what remained of her. Mike reached the pizzeria and found the entrances locked tight. He forced his way in through the basement, crawling past pipes and stagnant water. Inside, the original broken animatronics sat like abandoned guardians, silent and dust-coated. Mike moved through them without noticing Lisa's corpse nearby, her search for thrills ending in stillness. Back at the fair, Abby arrived with Chica beside her, and the crowd reacted with confusion and fear. Bird, drawn by the disturbance and furious that Abby had returned, pushed into restricted corridors to drive students away. Chica followed, trapped him in the back passages, and ended his cruelty with a sudden, chirichueri fracture adjutamperlation, brutal smash, as if she were tearing open a malfunctioning machine. Back at Freddy's, Mike heard pounding from inside a locker. He opened it and found Vanessa trapped, bruised and trembling. Vanessa explained that Abby had left with the prototypes and that Charlotte was controlling them through the marionette. Abby was the marionette's next body, the vessel Charlotte needed to operate freely. Vanessa guided Mike toward the control room and explained that Charlotte's soul had been stuck there after her death. The music box had been the restraint keeping her dormant, but Lisa broke it and allowed Charlotte to move again, using the prototypes as extensions of her rage. Mike slipped into water during the trek and nearly lost his footing. A restless animatronic stirred and followed him through the gloom, but he escaped and rejoined Vanessa. In the control room, Vanessa tried to identify which prototype carried Charlotte's presence. 4 prototypes were active, but Abby's exact location was unclear. Vanessa believed restarting the perimeter would allow them to track the machines and shut them down. Mike worked to restore the system while Vanessa searched for Abby, following signals and fear through the city. The perimeter surged and dropped, flickering like a dying pulse, and each failure gave the prototypes more time. With Chica's help, Abby stood before the judges and won the competition through spectacle and intimidation. Adults hesitated, but the award was still handed over. Meanwhile, Mike's repairs triggered a partial shutdown. Chica resisted, overrode the commands, and activated the other prototypes to spurred, and overrode types instead, scattering them through the city like hunting dogs. One prototype appeared in a man's garage and attacked him without warning. Another approached a child at home, masking danger with false friendliness and demanding permission to keep playing. Vanessa was attacked while driving, lost control and crashed, but she forced herself to continue. She reached a house where a couple was being assaulted and, in desperation, rammed her car into the structure, destroying 2 machines in a burst of debris. Even after the impact, another prototype lunged at her, and she drove it away with sheer panic and stubborn survival. Mike fought his own battles. One animatronic cornered him, and he used a teddy face to confuse its threat detection, making the robot hesitate as if it could not decide whether he was prey. Another prototype attacked him directly, and Mike snapped its neck and shut it off, but more emerged, surrounding him as his tools and energy dwindled. In another home, a prototype drew a knife on a mother, and the child tried to defend her, believing the machine was a friend. Mike endured long enough for the perimeter to surge again, and the roaming machines froze, collapsing into sudden silence. Mike called Vanessa to report the shutdown, but immediately noticed one signal still active. That signal led back to Mike's house. Vanessa recognized the pattern and concluded it had to be the marionette, still mobile and still focused on Abby. Both rushed toward the house, knowing the perimeter had only paused the threat, not ended it. Again at Mike's home, Chica tucked Abby into bed like a caretaker, then began to glitch. The marionette emerged, attacked Abby, and forced its presence into her, reactivating the prototypes again. Vanessa admitted they could not fight an army of machines head-on. Mike sprinted back to Freddy's and begged the original animatronics to help, appealing to whatever memory remained of Abby's bond with them, and whatever humanity the trapped souls still carried. Vanessa's car failed on the way, and despair nearly stopped her, until Jeremiah arrived and offered help. They reached Mike's home, found it eerily empty, and heard the past talker hiss with static. A possessed Abby appeared, moving with unnatural purpose. Vanessa ran and hid, but Abby tracked her relentlessly, struck her down, and prepared to finish what the marionette wanted. Mike arrived in time and played Henry's music box. The melody fractured the possession, and the marionette's grip loosened as Abby's body slackened and the presence slipped away. Schists. And they tried to escape, but prototypes surrounded the house, blocking exits like living walls. Then Michael appeared and addressed Vanessa as his sister, revealing his loyalty to William and his intent to continue the legacy. He ordered the machines to kill them. Before the prototypes could strike, the original animatronics arrived, tearing into their corrupted copies with fierce precision. One by one, the real versions destroyed the prototypes, and the original Chica crushed her counterfeit. Jeremiah knocked Michael out, and the remaining prototypes collapsed into silence. Abby broke down in tears, mourning what her friends had become and what she had been used for. A lingering spirit appeared and urged her to move on because the trapped souls were finally passing. The presence warned that something worse was approaching and could not be stopped, then vanished before questions could be answered. Mike carried Abby outside and insisted they leave immediately. Vanessa followed, hoping to stay close, but Mike stopped her and refused to let her remain in their lives after so many secrets. Left alone outside, Vanessa was seized, and the marionette slipped into her and took command. Later, two thieves broke into the abandoned pizzeria, hoping to sell original items online and on eBay. They boasted about easy money and searched for anything rare. One of their friends called to report a discovery, and they found Foxy under a plastic cover. They prepared to haul it out, certain it would bring a fortune, but the animatronic activated on its own, and the darkness promised the nightmare was not finished. Yuri believed that the nightmare was finished. Jury.